The jar of peanut butter in your kitchen right now contains insect parts. Not because the factory was dirty, not because something went wrong, because the United States government looked at your food, calculated exactly how many bug fragments, rodent hairs, and maggots you're allowed to eat, and wrote it into an official document. Nobody ever hands you that document at the grocery store. And peanut butter isn't even the worst one. That document is real. It's public. It's called the FDA Defect Levels Handbook. Once you know what's in it, you will never look at your grocery cart the same way again. Here's how it works. The FDA has a legal threshold for what it calls natural or unavoidable defects. The agency admits something most people never think about. It's physically impossible to grow, harvest, and process food at industrial scale with zero contamination. So instead of demanding zero, they calculated the lowest level that poses no health risk to you and made everything below that line completely legal. Let's start with something you probably ate this week. Every 100 grams of chocolate, about 2 candy bars, is legally allowed to contain 60 insect fragments. Not 1, not 5, 60, plus 1 rodent hair per 100 grams. The average American eats around 4.5 kilograms of chocolate a year. Do that math, and you're legally, safely eating hundreds of insect fragments a year just from chocolate. Peanut butter is next. 30 insect fragments per 100 grams. 1 rodent hair per 100 grams. A standard 16-ounce jar weighs about 450 grams. That's over 130 legal insect fragments and 4 rodent hairs in a jar that passed every FDA inspection. That's not contaminated peanut butter. That's normal peanut butter. But we're just getting started. The worst numbers aren't in your candy aisle. They're in your spice rack. A 50-gram container of ground cinnamon, the stuff you shake on your oatmeal, can legally contain 400 insect fragments and 11 rodent hairs. Ground paprika allows 75 fragments per 25 grams. Crushed oregano allows 300 per 10 grams. The seasoning on your pizza, the cinnamon in your latte, all of it comes with a built-in tolerance for what your brain would call contamination. And somehow produce is worse. Canned tomatoes, 2 maggots per 500 grams, or 10 or more fly eggs. Canned mushrooms, 20 or more maggots per 100 grams. Frozen broccoli, 60 aphids per 100 grams. Apple butter, 4 rodent hairs and 5 whole insects per 100 grams. And that's before counting mites, thrips, or scale insects, which have their own separate limits. Coffee beans are allowed to have 10% of the sample be insect-infested or moldy before the FDA even steps in. Here's the part that actually surprises people. This isn't a leak. It isn't a scandal some journalist dug up last week. The FDA Defect Levels Handbook has been sitting on the FDA's own website for decades. Food scientists know it. Regulatory lawyers know it. The entire food industry knows it. The only group that was never handed it is the one actually eating the food. So why does this exist? The answer is less dramatic than the bugs, but more important. Before the FDA, American food had almost no rules at all. Milk was cut with formaldehyde to stop it from spoiling. Bread was bulked up with chalk and plaster. Butter was really lard, dyed yellow, and sold as the real thing. Candy was colored with lead. Meat contained whatever was cheapest, including parts no one would have knowingly bought. The Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 was the first real attempt to fix that. written largely in response to the public outrage over Upton Sinclair's novel The Jungle and its descriptions of Chicago's meatpacking plants. The FDA grew out of that law, but regulators hit a wall almost immediately. Zero contamination in industrial food is not physically possible. Insects live in the fields your grain grows in. They lay eggs in crops before harvest. No machine on Earth filters that out completely at scale. The real choice was never between contaminated food and clean food. It was between disclosed, tested, scientifically set limits and no limits at all. And here's the part that actually changes how you see this. You've been eating this stuff your entire life, and it has never once made you sick. Every food safety system on Earth runs on the same logic. Not zero contamination, but contamination below the level that causes harm. Other countries just get there differently. The EU, for instance, leans on stricter inspection and near-zero tolerance at the border rather than published numeric limits like the FDA uses. Different method, same underlying truth. The alternative to some contamination was never no contamination. It was no food. There's also a bigger shift happening in how the world thinks about this. Roughly 2 billion people on Earth eat insects on purpose. They're dense in protein, healthy fats, iron, and zinc. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has flagged insects as a serious answer to global food security in the coming decades. The fragments in your chocolate are meaningless nutritionally, but the idea behind them, that insects are food, is already normal for most of the planet. So what does the FDA Defect Levels Handbook actually prove? Not that your food is dangerous. That the system was never built to explain itself to you. It was built to work whether you noticed or not. You signed up for a guarantee of safety. What you got was a managed tolerance, calculated and maintained for decades, mostly outside your awareness. Your peanut butter is safe. Your chocolate was safe. Your cinnamon is safe. But safe was never the same thing as pure. It never was. Which one of these numbers got you? The peanut butter, the cinnamon, or the coffee? Put it in the comments. I want to see. And if this changed how you look at your spice rack, subscribe. Every week we go looking for the systems hiding just under the surface of ordinary life. The rules, the thresholds, and the calculations that quietly decide what you eat, how you sleep, and how you think, without ever asking your permission. See you in the next one.